Look, this is the thing. Hollywood is making millions of our faith. They're making millions of our religion. And they don't care how they do it. They don't care who they hurt. The sensible thing to do is to own our own stories and tell them ourselves.
If we have experienced a change of heart, can ye feel so now?
Welcome back to the channel. My name is Carlos Romero. I am your host. And today is actually a very special episode because today I'm going to be doing my very first movie review on this channel. One of the goals that I have with this channel is to actually do reviews of LDS media, whether that is books, movies, you name it. And for my first media review, I'm going to do something that has never been done before. I'm going to review a horror film. Not just any horror film, an LDS horror film. A faithful Latter-day Saint horror film. That's right, folks, you heard me right. The movie is called The Angel, and it was directed by the dynamic duo of Barrett and Jess Bergen. Both are faithful Latter-day Saints, and both are actually have a strong social media presence. They've actually appeared in many podcasts on YouTube, talking about a variety of subjects, but overall, they're pretty legit, they're pretty solid. In fact, I actually met Barrett on my mission. We both had the same mission, we both served in the same mission. We were never companions or anything like that, but what I remember from him is that he was just a very happy individual and he really loved to express his love for the arts. Aside from the short film, the couple already has experience in directing film. In fact, there is a horror film on Apple TV Plus called Cryo, and this was actually their first success. You can actually go over there and watch it. Now let's talk about the film. The film, The Angel, is the first of its kind. It has never been done before. Something like this has never been seen before. The film is about two polygamous wives during the height of the practice in the Utah territory, who then experience a supernatural encounter with an angel that then lead to horrific events. It includes a very accurate depiction of the history of the church during that time period, as well as a bunch of Latter-day Saint doctrines and beliefs that is sprinkled all throughout the film. In an accurate way, mind you. I personally loved it. It's actually pretty legit. You can watch it for free on YouTube. Just type the title of the film, The Angel, and it's actually distributed by the YouTube channel called Altar. And I think if you're gonna continue to watch this video, you might wanna go and watch the movie first, because from now on, I'm gonna be talking spoilers. It's only about 18 minutes long, and this is your only warning. So if you really wanna continue watching this review, go watch it right now. I'll give you a moment. Welcome back. I will split up this breakdown into 3 separate parts: production, history, and theology. During this review, I will be pulling references from scriptures that are very unique to the Latter-day Saints. That includes Doctrine and Covenants, the Pearl of Great Price, the Book of Mormon itself, as well as from the church's gospel topics essays, and in regards to the issue of polygamy. And I will also add some links to some websites so you can learn a little bit of the historical background.
Cinematography.
Let's first talk about the production of this film, starting with the studio that helped this movie come to life. I'm talking about Altar Studios. I am not a big fan of horror film, simply because most of the horror that I've seen, it just has bad stories, bad acting, and just has a lot of elements that I personally don't like to watch in film. Way too much nudity, etc. But the movies that you see in this YouTube channel are actually very different. They're actually very story driven. And if you just want to see a good story, something that is horror themed, Altar is actually a pretty good place for you to check out the films. I actually saw some of the films that they actually had on there. They're actually pretty good. They're actually kind of scary. Because of the elements that this studio relies on, I think this was the perfect partner to do something like this. And I gotta say, they did an excellent job. Now let's talk about the film itself. I believe the cinematography was great. One of the first things that I noticed was the aspect ratio. I'm not sure why they chose this aspect ratio, but I do believe that the reason why they chose this aspect ratio was to pay homage to older Latter-day Saint films. When I first joined the church, I remember that I actually was introduced to many films because one thing that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is known for is taking advantage of media, whether that is movies, books, nowadays social media. And this has always been the case. And during the 70s, it seems to me at least, that there was a boom when it comes to production of movies within the church. And when I see this movie with the aspect ratio and the grainy film and the title and everything else, it reminds me a lot of one particular film. There were many like these, but one particular film that came to my mind that the church produced that was depicting the first vision of Joseph Smith. Overall, I thought that was actually a pretty cool choice. I like the fact that it actually looked like an older film. Now, I'm going to give this review as a faithful Latter-day Saint myself, but it doesn't mean that I didn't have my issues with the film. And I will point out the one issue that I had with the film was the acting. And it was not the acting by the two wives, neither by the angel, which I thought he was terrifying. I'm gonna complain about the acting from the man who played the husband. I understand that throughout the film he only had 2 lines, basically. However, he missed the opportunity to really shine. Because when he was being stabbed to death by his, wives, he just didn't sell it to me. Like, I think that it would have been better if he would have shown a little bit more emotion. And when I say that, I think it would have been better if he showed a little bit more fear in his eyes, a little bit more desperation, perhaps a little bit more disappointment when he saw the first wife. It just, I don't think he did a great job. And it was such a pitiful moment because that was like the height of the horror element within the film. And even though I think everything was cool, the lighting, there was like some red lighting behind. In fact, all the characters in the movie were present during the killing of the husband. Even the angel was in the back. You could actually see his shadow. I thought that was actually a pretty nice touch. I didn't recognize that the first time I saw it. I actually recognized it the second time when I was taking notes. And I thought that was like a really nice touch. Aside from his acting, I think everybody played their roles perfectly. From my understanding, there was only one active Latter-day Saint in the whole film, and that was actually the first wife, played by Tatum Langton. And the second wife, played by Jessica Staples, actually grew up in the church, but then later on left the faith.
Mystery.
Now let's move on to the historical background of the film. The story is set in 1881, and polygamy is in full swing, and the film is not shy about that whatsoever. Another thing that is happening in Utah during this time is that there's actually an anti-polygamist movement happening during this period, and it was led by a group called the Anti-Polygamist Society of Utah. There's important backstory to know because this same society was actually running a newspaper that only ran for like around 3 years, and it was actually called the Anti-Polygamist Standard. You actually see that newspaper in the film. This paper was meant to persuade Utah residents to abandon the practice of polygamy, and it was particularly aimed towards the women. And it was also meant to tell the rest of the nation their version of what was happening in Utah, so that way they can get the federal government's attention, so the federal government can come into Utah and actually take action against the practice of polygamy. What I find interesting about this backstory is because this kind of serves as anti-Mormon material of the time, and that's the reason why you see the character of the first wife reading this newspaper in secret. And since she is choosing to be influenced by these writings, you can tell from her demeanor from the very beginning of the film that perhaps she was thinking of, checking out of the faith altogether. Her language, her speech, saying things like that Utah is like a place where a lot of barbarism was happening, and she had like this desire to actually go back to the East Coast. And I think that this tension between the first wife and the second wife is a good representation of what was happening historically in Utah during that time. On the one hand, the first wife was kind of like a representation of the anti-polygamist movement, and on the other hand, the second wife was actually a representation of the believers, because one was actually reading anti-Mormon propaganda, and the other one was actually reading her scriptures, trying to keep her covenants and trying to do what she thought was right. And I would like to add that polygamy, according to what we know and what I've read and researched, is that it was not an easy thing for those that actually practiced it. There were many who said that they enjoyed it, that they found love, and it was all hunky-dory. But for a lot of people, it was actually more of a sacrifice. Leaders of the church understood that this lifestyle was no walk in the park for many, especially the women. That's why it was actually easier for women to separate themselves from such relationships through divorce if they so wished. And if they wanted to get married again or enter into another polygamous relationship, they had the freedom to do that as well. This was something that was actually pointed at by the second wife when they were discussing as to how to kill her husband. Because she said, oh, why don't we just get divorced like so-and-so did? establishing that divorce was indeed something that was happening as well, and it was something that women were aware that they could do.
Theology.
Now let's go into the juicy part. This is my favorite part, the theology. I gotta say, this part was awesome. I cannot believe that I saw what I saw when I was actually, watching this film. The first thing I want to point out is perhaps something that, it might not be as impactful to the viewer, but it was impactful to me because it was the full acceptance of a very unique doctrine that is unique to the Latter-day Saints, and that is the doctrine of eternal marriage. If you read section 132, the principle of eternal marriage, or the new and everlasting covenant, is right next to the practice of polygamy, and it gives us an explanation as to why polygamy is practiced and was practiced back in the day. And it is because of this revelation that was received by Joseph Smith that not only Joseph Smith himself practiced polygamy, but the rest of the church membership practiced polygamy in the early years of the church. Now, if you're not a Latter-day Saint and you know nothing about the culture or anything like that, you probably might not know that this particular section in our scriptures has been controversial from the very start. And it is still controversial today, even within the membership of the church. Just like there was a huge pushback against polygamy back in the day, there actually has been in recent years a huge pushback within the church against Section 132. In recent years, you've seen a lot of members saying that Section 132 was not revelation, and there have been many people that have been excommunicated from the church for preaching this falsehood. And the people that were excommunicated from the church actually believe in this conspiracy theory that actually 132 was written by Brigham Young, and the Brigham Young conspired with a bunch of people to kill Joseph Smith in order for them to start practicing polygamy. And it's this convoluted thing in which you gotta have involved like hundreds of people, even women themselves, wives of Joseph Smith that admitted that they were, the wives, they were married to Joseph Smith in every way, and even it's a mess. And what I love about this film is that it boldly declares that whoever tells you that this section is not of God is actually getting inspired by the devil himself. I thought that was pretty bold. It's like a slap to the face of all those people that were saying that Joseph Smith was not a polygamist and so forth. Another thing that I liked about the film is that it actually referenced what the Book of Mormon has to say about polygamy. In case you guys never read the Book of Mormon, the Book of Mormon actually condemns the practice of polygamy. However, it also declares that if it is commended by God to practice polygamy for the purpose of raising seed unto the Lord, then it's acceptable. In Jacob 2:30 we read, "For if I will, saith the Lord of hosts, raise up seed unto me, I will command my people, otherwise they shall hearken unto these things." These things meaning that we should only practice monogamy. The next thing I want to highlight is the angel, because as I said before, he was no ordinary angel. He was actually Lucifer in the flesh. This is evident for many reasons. One of the elements that the angel gives away that he is Lucifer is the apron that he wears around his waist. In the temple, we learn about the creation of the earth as it is written in the book of Genesis. And the character of Satan is actually presented not as a snake, but as a man. And this person representing Lucifer is actually wearing an apron around his waist. And we learn in the temple that that apron is actually a representation of his power on earth, like his wickedness, his false priesthood, his false power. I have to say, when I first saw that, I was like, genius. I've never seen anything like that outside of the church before. And to see that being represented in a faithful way, I don't think is not only bold, but it's also revolutionary. I do believe that the church can benefit from this sort of faithful representation approach to the church through media outside of the church. But it has to be done right. And on this occasion, it definitely was done right. The other element of the angel that I was looking for the whole time, and I'm so glad that they did it and that it was done right, is that the fact that they never made contact. I mean, the angel never really touched the other two female characters in the film. And that is a very significant thing in the film, and I will explain why. In the film, before the first wife comes into the room and invites the second wife to follow her so they can see the angel together, the second wife is sitting down reading a book. And that book is actually a copy of the Doctrine and Covenants. And she is reading a particular section of the Doctrine and Covenants, section 129. In this section, it is explained to us that if you meet an angel, let's say you're walking randomly in the street and an angel shows up to you and you want to know whether it's a good angel or not, all you gotta do is ask to shake his hand. And if he shakes your hand and you feel that it is like a legit hand, then it's supposedly a resurrected being, and then you can trust them. But if it's an angel that doesn't have a resurrected body, he's not going to shake your hand. He's just going to say his message and be gone. However, if it is the devil pretending to be an angel of light, then there is a way for you to detect that as well. And in verse 8 of that section, it says, if it be the devil as an angel of light, when you ask him to shake hands, he will offer you his hand, and you will not feel anything. You may therefore detect him. Meaning that if you shake your hand, or if you extend your hand and you don't feel anything, that's how you know it's the devil. What I like about the scene is that the angel got really close to them, face to face. In that, I think the reason why is so that way he can really sell the message. And since the second wife already read this section, she wanted to know if the angel was legit. That is why she reached out her hand, but something happened. The first wife stopped her from touching the angel, and I do believe that was intentional. And her reasons for stopping the second wife from touching the angel only adds to the horror of the film, and I will explain why. The last thing I want to highlight is my favorite part of the film, because this story is not just some random story between two women. Rather, this story is actually taking a lot of elements from the very first horror story in the Bible, and that is the story of Cain and Abel. Now, I'm not talking about the story of Cain and Abel as spoken of in the Bible. I'm talking about the story of Cain and Abel as talked about through Latter-day Saint scripture, particularly the story of Cain and Abel that we see in the book of Moses that is found in the Pearl of Great Price. A little background about this set of scriptures that we believe in. Think of the book of Moses as the director's cut of the book of Genesis. You learn about Adam and Eve, you learn about the creation of the world. However, way more details is given to us in these particular sets of scriptures. And in the story of Cain and Abel in the book of Moses, we see that Cain actually makes a pact with the devil before he slays his brother for the purpose of gaining his brother's flocks. In Moses 5, verses 29 to 41, we read, and Satan said unto Cain, swear unto me by thy throat, and this day I will deliver thy brother Abel into thy hands. And Cain said, truly I am Mahan, the master of this great secret, that I may murder and get gain. Wherefore Cain was called a master Mahan, and he gloried in wickedness. When the angel first appeared to the first wife, she was first scared, but then she was happy. Wonder why? Is it because she saw an angel of God? No, it's because she made a pact with the devil, and she gloried in her wickedness. The first wife knew from the very beginning that that angel was Satan himself. And that is the reason why she stopped the second wife from reaching out and touching him. And the most terrifying line of the whole film was at the very end when the first wife said these words.
Perhaps it is because we've been made free.
This is a direct quote from Cain after Cain slew his brother in the book of Moses. In Moses 5:33 we read, and Cain gloried in that which he had done, saying, I am free. This, of course, was a sense of false freedom, because now they will have to deal with the aftermath of what just happened. And no other scripture within our Latter-day Saint canon describes the reason why Satan didn't show up after the whole thing was done. And that scripture in particular is actually found in the book of Mormon, in the book of Alma, chapter 30, verse 60. And thus we see the end of him who perverteth the ways of the Lord. And thus we see that the devil will not support his children at the last day, but thus speedily drag them down to hell. This is the reason why the devil didn't show up after the matter was done, because all he wants to see is us suffer. Overall, great film. 2 thumbs up.
Conclusion.
Look, this is the thing. Hollywood is making millions of our faith. They're making millions of our religion. And they don't care how they do it. They don't care who they hurt. The best example of this is The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Hollywood knew that these women were going through issues and that were going through their family struggles, but did they care? Did they care about hurting the families that were, being portrayed for the purpose of gaining gain? No, they didn't care. And this is not gonna stop. They're gonna continue to try to make money out of us, because the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or Mormonism, however you want to call it, has always been looked at as something that is affiliated with the occult. And you know, things like that always sell. Netflix just dropped a new documentary about the FLDS. I'm still in the middle of watching it. I haven't finished it until the time of this recording. Maybe I might do a review on that. And the thing is that when people view these productions, whether it's a documentary or whether it's a show or whatever, that's probably the only experience that they're going to have with the restored gospel of Jesus Christ. And that is sad, because the restored gospel of Jesus Christ is awesome. There's so much that we offer, that the church offers and that the gospel offers, that can make people happy, that it can allow people to really come to know God in Christ and build a personal relationship with God. But unfortunately, it's overshadowed by all this negativity. So what can we do? What can we combat to push back against the negative narrative? The sensible thing to do is to own our own stories and tell them ourselves. And through this film, our story is being told in a very creative way. In fact, in a way that has never been done before. That's why I love it. You don't necessarily have to pick up a camera and start recording everything you do, for example. But if you have felt the need to share the gospel online, or to do something creative that is faith promoting, go for it. I started this channel for that reason. I went to art school, so I have a particular set of skills that allow me to pick up a camera and edit and all those things. So I'm using my education for that purpose. Also, seeing this movie kind of motivates me to show off my own art, because I'm actually an artist. See these two drawings right here of Jesus Christ? I did that. So moving forward, I'm going to be presenting my artwork, and I'm gonna be opening up a store. And if you're interested in art, and if you're interested in my art, you feel free to check out the store. And if you see what you like, you're welcome to support the channel by actually buying my artwork. So I invite you to actually go and check it out. The link is gonna be down below in the comments. The last thing I wanna say is that my good friend Barry, he actually gave me a PDF of all the things that him and his wife added in this film. But I did not look at that PDF because that kind of defeated the purpose of, you know, figuring things out on my own. And so I want to invite you, if you made it this far, thank you, congratulations. Comment down below if you actually saw the movie. What else did you catch in the film that I did not mention in this video? What elements of theology and history or something that is related to the restoration that you caught in the film that I did not mention? Comment down below. Let's see. Let's play a game.
I want to play a game.
Let's see how many Easter eggs we can find in this film. Well, that's it, folks. That's all I have for today. This is my first review ever. I hope that you enjoyed it. And you know, if you want to continue to support this channel, I want to invite you to like, share, comment, subscribe, all the cool YouTube stuff. And see you next time. I love you all. Peace out. Take care. Bye-bye. God bless. Bye-bye.